See how many people log on. All right, so I am, as always, Sensei Mish, and I have Harvey Hodnett on. He just lives about 3 hours north of me, but he is welcoming me with his presence. He's welcoming all of us as soon as people start chiming in with his presence on DojoChat today. So, Harvey, you brief bio. I mean, I've kind of promoted you on the show as, you're a fellow Ryukyu Kempoist, Kyusho-ist, martial artist, friend, etc. But what else can you tell us about yourself?
Currently, I'm a martial artist. Got 7th degree black belt in HKI. Been doing martial arts for the better part of my life. Started with Taekwondo when I was a younger man back in my teens. My parents actually taught me a little bit. They were Taekwondo people when they were younger and more active that way. But then I started studying on Gene Teston out of Baxley, Georgia for years. And he was always encouraging me to pursue all of the great, wonderful things that you can get, like by studying through some of the Asian masters. And when I got the opportunity, I did that. And I studied under Young So at Taekwondo. Sean Shelton and Tang Sudo, and eventually got some tournaments, came across a flyer to go to this really cool seminar with some people like Wally J and Remy Priestess and George Dillman. They were on the cover of Black Belt magazine. So I was like, man, I got to go check these guys out. Ended up there, met a guy named Jack Hogan, and been following his art since the early 90s. So that's kind of a little brief bio of me. So there you go.
Right on. So, what sold you? I mean, like, you started in Taekwondo. I started in Taekwondo. Actually, a friend of mine. I like telling the story, because we talk about martial arts every now and then, and he's like, yeah, everybody starts in Taekwondo, just like everybody has to go to kindergarten.
It's a great starting art, and it's around the country. Everybody has a Taekwondo school in their town. And you may not have any other art. It's just a generic art that gets started. But what's amazing about it is Taekwondo has the same patterns, the same basic motions as of all of the other hard style karate arts of Japan, because it's rooted from those arts.
Right.
And if you have that foundation already laid, it's really easy to transition into the others. There's some changes and things, but like Jack would always tell me when I first started, I didn't have to change anything. It would change itself. And that was kind of the truth that I discovered. It's a lot of times I wanted to, learn the art that Jack did. I'll tell you a quick story. Back when I was first met Jack, I did a few seminars, and I was watching the videos and the stuff. Like back then you have to get, either buy an expensive videotape or find somebody who had one of those. I was looking at the videos and like, oh man, this stuff's so great. I want to study what Jack teaches at his school. And so I made a commitment to drive all the way down to Jacksonville to go to his school to learn. And I got down there and got to the class. There's all these people there. I'm like, this is going to be so different. I was like, I've had it hyped up in my mind. This is going to be the most different experience. Get in there, everybody bows in, go to horse stance, midsection punch. And we're up and down the floor, low block, high block, inside, outside block, going up and down the floor, doing the same basic motions I had been doing in all my other classes all that time before. It's exactly the same. Nothing was different. We go through the kata. Katas, first three are basically the same. The Takioka 1 through 3 are the same basic patterns that you have in Taekwondo, at least a lot of the old schools. And then the others, well, they're very similar to the Tang Sudo form. So I was like, oh, this is not different at all. And that was one of the things that I realized, I'd stay after class, and that's where I started learning Kyushos with Jack after class, because there he'd be like, hey, Harvey, let me show you something. He would knock the hell out of me. And it was like, whoa, that's an experience. And it wasn't like he would hit me with full force either. It was just a nice touch to a certain place, and my body would just want to go. Like, this is amazing, because it wasn't the actual techniques that are different, but it's the bunkai that's different. It's the way you apply it that's different. And that to me was what sold me. It was a more honest interpretation of the technique than saying, up here, I'm blocking somebody who's kicking me. And be honest, that will work. If somebody's kicking in Taekwondo, they're doing one of those axe kicks, and you're coming up here, it'll slide down the arm. Works great for that. But if you're actually using self-defense, you're never getting attacked that way. People aren't coming at you flinging kicks that way like in movies. So it's like looking at it from somebody's grabbing me and my chambering's hitting them, then I'm coming back and catching them along the side of the jaw. It's like, well, now this makes more sense. This is getting people up close and personal. So that's kind of where I came. And that's what sold me on it, was the reality and the ability to use it to actually do something. So sorry, I talked real fast. Please forgive me.
So what do you say to the naysayers? Because, I don't know if you've experienced, I definitely have experienced and I don't want to call out a certain group, but it always seems to be the jiu-jitsu guys. They're like, that's bullshit-o, that's fake, that's not real martial arts, you wouldn't use it in a real fight. And it's like, but I have. So
it will not work against everybody. I mean, it's not designed to go like in a kung fu movie where you've got, one master's like, oh, my kung fu is stronger than your kung fu. It's not like that. So if you're putting two people together who are equally matched, this edge that you get from the Kyusho may not be something that's going to look all that kind of fancy kind of thing. People aren't going to just come up and grab you like, oh, let me grab you by your wrist, and there you are, now do a wrist escape. And that's what people see. They see either something that's over the top movie production looking, where they see the basic self-defense you may be teaching a kid. You teach a kid, we're going to do a single, same side wrist grab for an escape. We're teaching a principle. We're teaching a means by which we're learning the point, but we're not teaching the full application of that point. And so people see that, and they're like, well, nobody's ever really going to grab you that way. And probably not, because there's a whole lot of other things you can do if somebody grabs you that way. You could just poke them in the eye if you wanted to.
Right.
If somebody grabs you, you got the same reach they do, you've got them as much as they've got you. It just depends on how strong the person is, but it's not realistic when people watch the videos, and that's the thing. They're not experiencing the art for itself. And the jiu-jitsu guys, I mean, they are some of the best martial artists out there. I've had the opportunity, as soon as the COVID thing passes, and I've been training with the gym over here and learning a lot of the jiu-jitsu stuff, and got no shame in putting on a white belt and learning what they do, because they do an amazing art. It's beautiful, it's painful, and it works great when you're on the ground. I'd hate to be on the ground against somebody who's a skilled tactician with that stuff, because it's hard to get a point on somebody who is like trying to choke you out. And that stress test of it just really humbles you back. But if somebody grabs you and is trying to hold on to you, and they're not a master level fighter, it does give you an edge to get yourself free, to put that person down. I mean, we do some things that people consider dirty fighting. I have no shame in locking somebody up on a finger. You can't do that when you're rolling around on the mat in jiu-jitsu. That's kind of considered a dirty tactic. But if you're on the street, or you're out there working somewhere where somebody's about to do you physical damage, there is no shame in putting a finger lock on them. And if you accidentally break their finger, there's no shame in that either. It's just a matter of what is your actual place and where you're at the moment. So I look at naysayers as, I'm not really concerned that they say they don't believe it. If they don't believe it because they haven't tried it, then that's their loss. If they don't believe it and they have tried it, they might have just got the wrong person to show it to them. I've got no problem with somebody wants to come up and be like, try it. I'm going to show you. If you don't feel it, I'm going to show you the mechanical way it works. Because if I can't make the points work, I'll make it work mechanically. If I can't make it work mechanically, I'm doing it wrong. And that's basically it. Is the problem that I'm seeing is, and not to insult any of the other Kyusho practitioners out there, but there are some who have gone out and made some videos that are horrible at what they do, and they've made a laughing stock out of people by going out and doing stuff that looks fake, might even be fake. I'm not going to call them out and say that, but I'm sure you've seen these videos.
Oh
Go
yeah.
make Dojo Life, and they'll show you a few of them here and there. So
I love following Rob. He's awesome.
and it's like when they go out and they do something to try to make themselves look good, they make the rest of us look bad when they hear that that's the art we practice, because they're expecting us to go out and do some sort of mystical magic, and it's bad. But it's like, if you can use the mechanical side of it, and Dave V. Hogan, who's taken the head of HKI after passing of Grandmaster Jack Hogan, he has really put out and stressed the three levels that we use. But one of them is that first mechanical level. You have to learn your basic karate. You have to learn how to do the stuff the old school physical way. And then you start adding your points into it. You can't just bypass traditional martial arts and just throw all that to the window and go, well, I've got points. I don't need to study how to actually move like a martial artist anymore. You have to move like a martial artist. You have to know how to do the techniques correctly in order to make them work. And then once you are doing the movements correctly and you're adding the points more often than not will enhance that technique. When you add to that, you start learning about how energy moves. Energy moves. It moves with the direction of our body flow. We're moving our body the correct way. The energy flows through the points and it enhances our technique. So it's like making a pyramid. This little piece on the top is not all of it. It's that giant, big base that holds it. And it's the techniques, our basic foundation, that is what's keeping the martial arts working. Kyusho doesn't work by just touching the point and person goes out. I mean, minus there's like a couple of places, but those, because you put your finger along the carotid artery, it's gonna cause somebody to go down anyway. But that's just stopping
Right.
blood flow. So it's understanding how it works, and then understanding where the points lie. If you really look at the body and get the overlap of where the points are, you'll see that the majority of the places that we're touching are vascular. We're touching along arteries, veins, we're touching along air passages. All of these things are going along with it. They are not separated from it. And people who just look at it purely from a lens of traditional Chinese medicine without actually looking at it from our Western side of knowing full on what these meridians actually are touching, it's like, if you put your hand on your wrist, you find that little spot right here, you touch it, and you can check your pulse in that same area. If you push downward, you'll cock at a 45, you find it, you're actually making an effect to the blood flow in your arm. Well, when you're doing the activation of the point, you can be doing the very same thing, which weakens the wrist, weakens the fist, and boom, there you go. It's a physiological thing. It's not a mystical thing. And I think that
Right.
I think we got early on, we looked so much at the traditional Chinese charts, and people start talking about all the plethora of theories, that we start losing focus that there's very simplistic American ways to look at it and explain it to people that make a lot of sense. But that's just
Well, I think you have a really good point there. My latest project that I'm working on, it's going to be a future episode. And before I go into that, Young does say hi. So hey, Young,
good to see you,
thanks
brother.
for tuning in. So it's going to be a future episode of Kyusho Corner, but it's also going to be a book, and but it's all based on the Vulcan neck pinch, but in going about the points, in doing the research and thinking about, how do I express this not only in a written, well, I'm better on video than I am in a book. So I really had to think of how am I going to put all of this into words, and how am I going to, I wanted to put an Eastern traditional medicine Chinese medicine theory in there, as well as a Western, the Eastern perspective and the Western perspective. So, and that, I think early on, yes, we were focusing on points, and I have a bunch of acupuncture books and acupressure books and going off of that. But I think it was at least to give names to points.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easier to say, okay, well, here's all these points that work in our favor, and they've already been given names, large intestine 18 or triple warmer 23 or, triple warmer 11, whatever. And then trying to expand on that. And then I think because in like triple warmer 11, that's on the elbow. So are we just going to call that the elbow point? And then basically, I think it was, yes. Yeah. That's what sometimes we call it now, but it's one of those where it's like, the Eastern medicine has already given us the names. So why change something? Like, why rebuild the wheel if we don't really need to?
Well, I think that's kind of where, like, I know that it's the best way that we're all on the same page of knowing what points we're talking about. We've got that.
Yeah, exactly.
We know what we're talking about when we talk about a point.
Yeah.
Though whatever name it's called really won't make a difference, but it does give everybody the same kind of language, and having the same alphabet is useful, especially we're promoting within the different groups that we do at Kyusho. So it's got a
exactly. And then you have the people that go too literal and go down that acupuncture and be like, okay, well, the meridians and touch this, and it's like, no, there is a Western perspective. And I think the people in the groups that have gone too far off on the Eastern perspective, and then get into the mystical, that's the ones that have gone too far have I think given us a bad name. So like in the project of this book, I try and be like, okay, so there are two perspectives. I'm going to try and show two perspectives, even pointing out the points that that I use. It's like, okay, well, here's all the Eastern information, but I'm going to give it a Western name. I'm going to give it a Western location, and so you can find it. But also pointing out that just because you can put your fingers on these points doesn't mean it's going to work. There's technique to it. And then, you also mentioned the term theory. I think everything that becomes something becomes theory, or it starts out as a theory, and you have to, starts out as a theory, moves into a principle, then becomes something that works. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it depends on what you mean by theory. If we go purely scientific with it, we've got a lot of practical uses of a hypothesis before we can actually build a theory. The theory is really close to becoming a very strong law. So if you can make it work time and time again, that's
okay. So let's look at let's look at 3 points make a knockout.
Yeah.
Okay. So in theory, that does work, but it doesn't always work.
It does not always need to be 3.
Yeah. It could be 1. So, and I don't know. I think, I don't know. Maybe I'm not articulating myself correctly.
I agree. That's the part that I struggle with the most when I look at it. And this is, it gets you bogged down. You have your cycle of creation, your cycle of destruction. You have 2 basic ways. One builds, one destroys, but both will cause a knockout if you use them. And it's like, it starts looking like there's so many different paths to achieve the same thing. that where Jack headed to towards his later part of his life was talking about what he called major and minors. And if you look at like your arm points and at looking at those as like minor points, they set up everything for major points. Where so you're looking at the things along the neck, the head, the points that kind of your glory points to get the job done.
Right.
So when you get a hold of the arm and you coming in and you destroy the arm, the hand is going back. It's going right towards one of those points because you follow the path. It goes right to the major point, and it sets it up. And it follows one of the cycles without you having to sit there and pop out a book and start looking through it to make sure you're hitting the right one. Is you're allowing the technique and the motion to actually get you from your minor point to your major point, which will achieve the result you're looking for. And in self-defense and real fighting, it is much better to allow the natural motion to work for you than it is to get bogged down in the thoughts of why it works. Now, it's great to know those. And there are some people I know who are amazing, if you will, at understanding the how, whys, can explain to you the histories behind it. And I love those guys because they keep a level of knowledge that is well above mine. They got this knowledge. I'll tell you, Gerald Carter is amazing at knowing a lot of that kind of stuff. Young, if you're still very young, knows a lot of that kind of stuff in a way that understands the healing and the massage aspects because of his training and the other stuff as well. And I think he does a couple of other arts to mix with it. And that's great to have that. But for teaching somebody how to defend themselves, you go down to what is the absolute necessity of teaching somebody how to defend themselves. And one of them is learn the basic motion,
right,
prevent the attack, whatever attack it is, or to initiate the attack if there's an attack is inevitable. But knowing what is the proper time for the use of force, what use of force is necessary to take away the threat and go with it. And knowing that once you have that attack for the minor points, the major points are set up. You don't have to follow through if you can stop the attack off the first. But once it starts, there you go. It's a fluid motion.
Yeah. No, I remember Jack saying something about, it was kind of almost on the line of, a point is a point, just follow the points up. You don't have to, it's not necessary to know, all the elements or, everything just kind of fits together in your technique already.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
the technique is teaching you how to hit the points. And once you start understanding what techniques are going for what movement, the points are there. And the next point presents itself. When you hit somebody along the crease of their arm and you hit the point, I don't care what point you're talking about. If you get the right one because you're coming down, their head is lunging towards you. When your arm comes back up, it will hit a point. It may not be the one that you wanted. You might be lucky enough to get this nice little triple warmer 17 and be like the really nice one. And it's going to come right back on them. Boom. That's it. And it's simple. You make their body move to the next strike. And understanding you are causing them to move, you're playing like a game of chess. Your opening sets their response, their defense, their motion next sets for you to make your next move. You're at least a couple of moves ahead of them once you get that first strike in. So it's just basically learning how the body moves and making the body move the way you want it, yours and theirs.
So Young has a question. What is your personal favorite knockout?
My personal favorite knockout. That is a good question. At the moment, believe it or not, is actually a no-touch knockout. Is my favorite knockout.
Yeah.
And it is actually the no-touch knockout is my favorite. The one just using the eye is actually my favorite because I have never been able to figure out how Jack was able to do that. And that is my favorite knockout. Now, for me personally, the one I like best is
that the one where he's just staring at you and then you go out? Yeah. Okay.
The evil eye knockout.
The evil eye knockout. Yeah.
That was my favorite one ever done to me. My favorite one to do is anything that goes along the like triple warmer 17. Anything I go to there is always a favorite for me. I just like going that direction. That's one of my favorite places to go. A lot of the motions that I do, whether it be here, coming back, are always attacking in the same points, because it's something I learned from Bruce Chu years ago. Is talking about like having your weapon, your like projectile, and your target. And you're like, if you can, you think about, you don't think about when you're firing your weapon that, I'm concentrating on the bullet. I'm concentrating on the target. So if I'm going to shoot a firearm, I'm not going to be sitting there going like, if I've got my grip correct, I've got my trigger squeeze correct, I've got my breathing correct, I'm firing at the direction of a target. I am more concentrating on the target and what's beyond it than I am about the weapon system and the projectile. I'm thinking about hitting the target. So whenever I'm moving a motion, I'm thinking about hitting particular targets. And those targets are where my mind is focused on. And whatever weapon that I'm using, which, that's my arms, I'm going to find those targets with my arms, my hands, until I reach those targets. So there you go. Hope that helps.
Right on.
But as far as like a show knockout, something I want to be filmed doing, it's like, that's never been my thing. I've never really been one who never liked to be on camera, never liked to be the one doing that. It was just never my thing.
Yeah.
And it's like I was in Italy with Mark a couple of years ago, and I had a kid come up to me and he wanted me to knock him out so he'd get his first knockout. And I felt a little weird about it, because it's like, I don't really just like to knock people out just for fun. But I did a nice little tap on gallbladder 20 for him, and he's like, yeah, and he was like, oh, well, thank you. And I'm like, I was like, I feel kind of bad about it, because I don't really like hitting people just for, shits and grins. Excuse me if I violate any of your monetized.
Yeah, that's okay. I have enough on, well, I could care less about Facebook. I hate Facebook. I'm only on here because that's where a lot of people are. And some people don't like YouTube, but, YouTube, I've got enough subscribers. I just don't have enough airtime. So I'm not monetized anyway. So it's not like they can't unmonetize me.
Like, it's that thing. It's like, I've been concerned, because I was talking to this doctor over in Italy.
Yeah.
It's a pretty smart guy. And I was looking at a lot of the stuff dealing with the reactions of the body when we do even some of the minor hits. And I've been concerned about like concussions and things along those lines. And I know a lot of people disagree, but I was looking at some of his study on it, and it made me kind of start to go, I'm not sure how many times I want to actually knock somebody out, because even on a light motion is when the head drops quickly, that you can still have some of those issues with being concussed. And that to me was like, I don't really want to hurt somebody unless I want to hurt somebody. And people who I train with, I don't really want to hurt them. So it's like, can I touch somebody in a way they can feel what I'm looking for and not put them out completely? Was that going to be sufficient to teach the technique? Or do I want to go ahead and get the good video of putting somebody out completely? And it's like, for me, I'd rather not put somebody out completely unless there's a real reason to. You kind of see where I'm going with this? But that's my personal feelings on it.
Yeah. Well, and like testing out, and, even, though George, used to sell videotapes of just knockouts. Even George at one point was like, as long as you get him dazed, that's all you need. He says, just a light tap. And, it's like, so if you hit him harder, they're going to go out further. So all you need is just that light tap, just to know that technique or that point works. There's really no point to putting somebody out fully, unless of course you really, really want to do it, which even I don't put people out fully, so
I kind of see it where,
and I do. And like for me, I like to hit people. I don't know if that's just me being like, a psychopath or, but But I do like, Thomas, he's my ultimate uke. Um, you know, playing with him on with this Vulcan nerve pinch, there's a couple that are not going to make it into the book at all, because there were some times where he's like, oh, I think I'm going to throw up. Or like, sometimes where I made him sick and we actually had to sit down and do some healing, because I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to show that to anybody, because I don't, it's like, this is something that works more for entertainment and show. I don't want people going out there making people sick, So
And the thing is that you don't have to hurt somebody, and you never should hurt the person you're training with. You don't keep
absolutely
training partners if you put them in a lot of pain. Now, for me personally, I never minded the pain, so I probably got beat up on more than a lot of people would ever want to be beat up on. If Young's still around, he can attest to that.
Yeah.
I used to get the crap beat out of me by Jack on a regular basis, and I enjoyed it, because every time he hit me, I learned more about where the points were and the way it was going to be hit. And the more you're hit, the more you learn how it feels.
Yeah,
how it feels, you learn how to do it.
I absolutely agree. I mean, like, I had no problem being an uke. In fact, I've told this story 100 times where I basically pestered Jack into doing a no-touch knockout on me because I wanted to feel it. And even I called him. I was like, you're going to be in Idaho. Let's do this. And he's like, well, kind of hemmed and hawed. And so when we were at the seminar, he's like, oh, do you have any, he started talking and be like, I have a question. And it all geared towards no touch. So he's like, fine, just get up. Okay. Because I want to feel it. I have no problem being an uke. You should always be good to your uke. And that's, of course, that's one of my taglines for Kyusho Corner. But yeah, I love being hit on, because you learn. It's like, oh, that's how, if the person's doing the technique on you correctly, you're like, okay, that's how the body should be moving. This is how I should feel. It even goes into my thoughts on getting, if you're going to be going through like an OC class or a taser course or whatever, you should be tased. You should feel the OC, because if you're going to be using, if you're going to be using pressure points on somebody, if you're going to be tasing somebody, if you're going to be, shooting somebody with OC, you should be able to, like, yeah, I know how this feels. So so it almost builds in some compassion into, doing the technique.
Yeah, there's
even though if I'm hitting you, I really don't care. That's the part of, I like to hit people.
Actually, I think the OC pepper spray training is one of the things that could really relate to it as well. Is that when you go through that training, and I'm not sure what kind of training you did with it, but you get it across your eyes, you got to blink a few times, get it in there, and it burns so bad. It is like one of the worst feelings. I mean, I would not want that upon my worst enemy. It would be more humane to do something else than to do that to anybody. This is the most painful experience. But for the training I had to do on it, they actually went with, once you do that, you have to go through a whole systematic fighting against, hitting pads, taking down somebody, putting them in zip ties and restraining somebody while you are actually burning. And one of the parts of that training was to show you that you can fight through it.
Yep.
And that, to me, is like something you gain too from getting hit with points, is that you learn a lot about how to resist the pain of the points through doing it. Now, it's not something I demonstrate a whole lot, but and people who know me and seen me get knocked out, they jokingly will say I'm an easy knockout. I'm an easy knockout unless I'm resisting. If I'm resisting, I can resist the hell out of a good hit to the points, because I know when those are going to hit, there's ways that you can take the pain away from them as well. Now, there's some places that it's real hard to resist. Getting hit along stomach 9, that's a real hard one to resist right there. But if you got a good thick neck, maybe, I don't know. But for me, I'm not sure how to resist that one. That's just a painful one.
Yeah.
But But when you're like looking at most of your arm points and stuff, or even like along the head, you can actually resist a lot of the points if you know what's coming. And so that's kind of one of the downsides of back to the naysayer aspect. If somebody is resisting and they're resisting and they're used to blunt force trauma and things like that, yeah, they can actually resist pretty good. And that's kind of a significant aspect of it. Again, going back to why you have to be good at the mechanical, but it helps you when it's used against you. But going back to that light days is, if you look at the way a lot of the katas are designed,
Mm-hmm.
if you really break them down, they don't end in knockout. Actually, I would say that none of it is really designed to end in a knockout. If you look at the way those things are designed, they're designed to end in neck breaks and actual destruction of the life. You're trying to kill somebody when you're using these techniques. So light days that you're getting is enough to weaken the body in order to kill somebody. So just using your low block off of like your very first basic kata, you've got a lot of ways to break the neck just coming straight out of that. The knockouts are great, but when you look at what it's designed to do, these are very destructive movements. The knockout's just a kind of a mid-step in a larger picture to actually destroy life. So you can't practice that one. That's not a very good thing to practice. I mean, we're not like doing those death matches and stuff like you see in the old 80s movies. But when your life is truly threatened and you're in a situation where you have to fight for your life, there is a finishing aspect of it that's not really talked a lot about in the Kyusho circle, but it's there, and people who've studied it for a while know this. I mean, you've been doing this for a good long time. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing. We get very much into the knockout aspect, but forgetting that there's a whole lot more to it that's really brutal. The guys who designed these motions were not thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to knock the guy out and walk away." Now, here in our Western sensibilities, realizing that that level of violence isn't always needed, we know we can dial it back a notch. And you dial it back a notch, you get the guy over, you can shove him against the wall, you can get away. That's great. That keeps us out of a lot of trouble. But if you're in a situation where your life is being truly threatened and deadly force is called for, well, you got an effective means of using it there as too. So it's just something I think about sometimes when looking at this stuff. But
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, like even going back to the Hohan Soken notes,
mhm.
you know, it was when you look at all the different points, it's like fatal, 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 fatal. And it's like, yeah, it was that all the techniques, they were, complete incapacitation to death techniques. And, living in a Western society with lots of laws, especially in a sue happy society, you got to humanize it a little bit. So you break it down just to the knockouts. But of course, if you've been doing it for as long as you and I have, it's like, okay, knockouts are great and they're fun to play with. But, when the zombie apocalypse happens, what are these moves really? What are we looking at? So,
And that's the thing, is understanding that it's there's a whole lot more to the iceberg than what people see. And that really goes back to the whole thing of like why people look so negatively upon Kyusho, especially now that the advent of the internet and videos, because like back when we started this, the internet was pre-internet, and then the internet comes along and takes like an hour to upload a picture. And then you look at now, like people get video streaming like our cast we're on right now. It's like
yeah.
people can see everything that's out there, and every video that's tagged isn't a good representation of what we're doing. And that's the thing, is people are only seeing just a little tiny piece of the puzzle, and that puzzle is got way more underneath the ice than what they see. And it's like there's a huge iceberg out there.
Right.
And just getting to where that big mountain of stuff is it takes a lot of time and a lot of training and a lot of experience to fully see. And it's way more than just a knockout. It's way more than just a technique. It's It's learning all of the things. Like I was saying, it's like you gotta have the mechanical. Um, the mechanical is never to be lessened, and I think that's something that I think we all need to get back to talking about is the karate is the foundation, and you have to have a good foundation. And on
Right.
top of that, then you start adding points to that foundation, and then you get that icing on the cake where you have the energy. Maybe one day that'll be something that'll be much bigger than what it is, or maybe it'll always just be something that's like this. I don't know, but I do know that there's something there, but it's not the end all be all. It's a complement of the other two, and we have to look at it from that point of view instead of making that the primary thing we show everybody and the demonstrations that people see. That's what they think we do, and they think that's all there is to it. But it's kind of a sad thing because a lot of people are avoiding learning it at this point because they're like, "Oh, I don't want to be part of that. That's just weird." So
Yeah.
no, that's just that's a very small part of what we do. It's a very small part, and I like to stress that it's the actual karate aspect that we do that makes us martial artists. And, Jack,
Well,
it's very
it's
good. Move like a martial artist. That's what you got to do.
um I let's see, where's my thought going with this? So we both agree, points are, and I like how I've always said, points enhance the technique. I like your term of complementing. They complement the technique, whether it's points or energy or whatever. Um, and like for me, I have no problem being on video. I don't know if it's just I don't know. Well, looking at some of my older videos, like completely cringeworthy. Like I was like, I know I have grown as in front of the camera over the years, but I think a lot of, because we can stream and it's so easy to get stuff out there, there's a lot of people trying to promote themselves as, hey, I can do this. And of course they put out that stuff that is that very small portion as demos. So you have when you see somebody doing a knockout, and even at the big 3 seminars, and I've only been to, honestly, I think I've only been to one Hogan seminar. So I don't know if Jack ran it this way after he stopped doing the big 3s, but there was always that knockout demonstration where it's like, okay, I'm taking this move, and it was just not doing it in real speed. It was just like, I'm hitting this point, this point, this point, and then the person goes out, which is again just teaching the points in principle but not showing it in real. And I think people take those videos out of context and then promote them as BS on the internet. And then you have those other people that kind of perpetuate that and then give us the bad name. And then like McDojo Life, I actually contributed to his the Kickstarter, because he was going to go around and basically interview Kyusho people or no touch people. And then COVID hit, so that kind of put a thing on it. So, but I'd like to see what he comes up with, because is he going to end up with people who put stuff on video for show because it's flashy and that's what you do at a demo, but maybe not in real, just to get that, but then in real, it's like, no, I'm actually teaching the techniques, and this is I'm complimenting it with points, because he and I have chatted on over Instagram, and I think that's probably why he doesn't harass me, because he knows where I stand on the points, and how they enhance. But I don't know where I was going there, but your thoughts on that gobbledygook that I just spewed forth.
Well, I always enjoy a good McDojo life video. It's always good.
I do. They're super enjoyable, especially his breakdowns.
Yeah, and I respect where he's coming from because I know he's pretty good with the pro chucks, and he's got some background in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and both of those things I think are kind of cool too. I mean, it's like, even that with the pro chucks, that's not something that you're going to realistically be using a whole lot because, I mean, how often are you going to be pulling out some nunchucks on the street anyway? It's
Yeah.
and being able to flip them and stuff, I always find that amazing. There's I always kind of thought that was one of the coolest things. Enjoyed the seminars where we learned some of that stuff, but it's there's a level of the demonstrations that you have to make it clear when you're showing something. It's a demo, that it is a demo, and there
Yeah.
are things that I do that are a demo. As like I've done an energy finger lock knockout. It's kind of a demo thing, but it's only to demonstrate principles behind using mechanical and points and energy is only purpose behind it. Actually, as far as actually having the thing, it's like, no, it's mainly a control technique. So I wouldn't use it that way at a real application because it's for gaining control.
Right.
I'm not going to go out there and try to put this out, and I would never want anybody who studies with me to use what they see as a demonstration as a means of self-defense. Now, if you can pull it off, well, that's great. But why would you want to do that? I mean, it's like if you're going to use firearms, you're not going to go for trick shots when your life is on the line.
Right.
You're not going to go like a lot of talk in the news recently where people speak of things like, well, why don't you shoot the leg, or why didn't they shoot the hand, or disarm them? Like like in the old movies where people pull their 6-shooter, shoot the gun out of the guy's hand. It's like, well, it doesn't work like that in real life. When
Yeah.
you pull a firearm, you're pulling it for one use and one use only. And that's to shoot center mass for deadly force. And that's the way you use it because it's the tried and true, always works. And there's a lot of controversy around it, but that's the nature of the tool. You use the tool the way the tool's designed. And
Yeah.
and when it comes to our hands and our feet and fighting methods, when it comes to push comes to shove and you have to actually fight, you go out of your way. Do not fight unless you have to. Do not fight unless you have to. I do not want to fight. But when I fight, you fight to win.
Yeah.
It means you don't pull out your bag of tricks of all the coolest things you've ever tried a few times and thought looked cool on a video. You go for the tried and true you notice will work 100% of the time, which
Absolutely.
means you need a mechanical technique that will work 100% of the time on everybody. So mechanical has to be the first thing you're going for. And if you know that there's points along that path, you're going to use them because that's going to enhance it. It's going to complement the technique. And your energy is going to be projected because when you get to that point where your body is elevated, hyper aware, and you're really ready to fight, the hairs on the back of your head stand up, the energy's flowing. The technique will flow more naturally if you just let it go, and the energy is going to come out. Now, it's not going to be an energy knockout. It's not going to be a point knockout. It's not even going to be a mechanical knockout. It's going to be, I'm going to destroy the target because that's what you're going for. And understanding that that's what our relying on for self-defense is not fancy. It's using what always works. You came up here, you remember Rutledge, right? Large man, kind of big, stocky. Not a point on his body will he feel, no matter where you strike him. It's like I don't know if you got a chance to work with him any, but he doesn't feel points at all, and that's scary when you're looking at a guy his size because he's a big guy. But the mechanical works on it, and then that's important to know is that if you do the mechanical manipulations the right way, you can still get your arm bars, you can still get him in the right position, but it's only using the mechanical, not having to rely on the other. So always go back to the base, work your way up. But I'm saying it wrong because you're not really working your way up. You're actually using all three at the same time, always.
Right.
When you're beginning, you're just working one. As you're learning the next, you're working it. Then you're learning to put it together. But at a certain point, you're always using it. So when you strike, you're always striking with energy. you're always striking using the points. You're always using those three elements together at every opportunity. So it's not something you separate. Once you've learned it, you don't really separate it anymore. It becomes one fluid piece together. And in the right circumstances, it will work. And if one of them is failing, yet that base that you have, that strong foundation, will be the one that will save your life. And I think that Rob on McDojo Life, he's always stressing that these techniques will get people killed. And I agree with it. If you're teaching your students some of these type of techniques, and that is all you teach your students, is these flashy techniques that are silly, then yeah, you're doing them a disservice. You have to teach them solid karate that will save their life. You have to teach them the proper way to escape, the ways to base to get out of the situation, understanding that the way the person's going to move isn't going to be somebody who's just standing there. Like they punch you, they leave that fist just hanging. Nobody punches that way. There's not a person on the planet who is a fighter who will leave their target out there just for you to go, oh, I'm going to touch it now. Now I'm going to hit you. They're not going to do that. The hand's going to retract and the other one's coming right back at you just as fast. So you have to step off to the side. You have to get those other weapons out of your way. You have to get in close. You have to shut them down. And knowing those aspects of it, you teach that to your students. You make sure that they don't have that false sense of security that's going to put them in a worse situation. But you also want them to have a good, healthy understanding that when you get into a fight, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hurt. That's just the nature of fighting. If somebody pulls out a weapon, your chances are, if they've got a gun, you might take a bullet. If they got a knife, you're going to get cut. It's having a realistic understanding that violence is very, very stressful and very painful. And if you can crawl away at the end of the fight, then you're fine. But you might be able to crawl away because you're going to get hit. You're going to get hurt. So you don't give up. In the Army, we had Army combatives training that people always thought was it's really silly. But one of the things was a clinch drill. As first level combatives, they teach a clinch drill where you go through 3 iterations of getting punched in the face. The guys get the boxing gloves on. You don't have the boxing gloves on if you're the guy getting hit. And they're going to hit you, but you can't hit them back. They're going to punch you in the face. The only thing you have to do is get the clinch to shut them down. And the idea behind it was not to make you great at the clinch. The idea behind it was to take people who've never been punched in the face, get them a couple of nice taps to the face here and there, to where they understand that even in the midst of getting punched, you can still fight through. And so the first iteration's just like a light tap. Second one, they up it a little bit. And the third one, they're just going to put one good tag on you to make sure you feel it. But understanding that you're up in that point where you're getting some damage to your face, that you're not scared and flinching away, because the quickest way to lose a fight is to collapse over and go, mommy, and be like, oh, I can't fight because I get punched in the face. You don't want to be that first time you ever get tagged by somebody to be that day where you actually have to rely on your skills. And that's what I'm saying, is you have to be realistic with your students and tell them that it could get ugly, and it could get ugly really fast. Anyway.
Well, that's something that we experience at the hospital. When I was still leading the academy, and even before that, it was, we hire a lot of these guys who, they want to get into security, or they want to get into law enforcement. So, they start at the hospital, or maybe they've been in contract and all they did was just sit in a patrol car all night or sit and watch dirt. But when you're working in a hospital, you're dealing with other humans, other violent humans, potentially extremely violent humans almost every day. And they get into these situations where all of a sudden you get this guy that's hopped up on meth and wants to destroy you because he doesn't want to stay and he's being forced to by the doctors, and it's your job to keep him there. And then they're like, and so in our training, it's like, no, we need to get a bodysuit. We need to create some real world drills, just like I had, TJ had commented while you were talking, real world scenario fighting.
Hey, TJ.
Yeah. And and actually hit these guys. In fact, I was pro, let's just punch these guys in the face. Because if they've never been punched, seriously, if you've never been punched in the face, and it goes all the way back to the OC. I mean, like, your experience with the OC, that was mine. Like, you got it. I went through it a couple times. You get it in your face, and then you got to do all these dexterity drills, and you got to fight back. But in the end, it's that principle of knowing that you'll be okay in the end. But you have to go through the extreme in training. Just same thing when I was tased. I had to crawl to a sim gun. And that was, and I'll take tasing over OC any day. But, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to train yourself to actually be in a fight, you need to, and I've always been one, I'm kind of on the edge when it comes to sparring, because I want my sparring to match my self-defense. I don't want my sparring just to be like, bouncing on the toes, jumping back and forth. But it should be more realistic of, okay, well, I've got these principles that I'm working with locks or whatever. And if I get hit in the face, I get hit in the face. But there's not a lot of people out there that there's people like you and me and a few others that we've got some screws loose. So we have no problem doing that. But most of the people out there who want to take martial arts just want to take martial arts to get a black belt, or just say that they're taking martial arts and then, but don't want to get hit in the face.
But then you have to be very careful when you get to that hitting people in the face too, because it has to be a very controlled environment.
True.
You do have a level of risk, because like the clinch drill, I noticed one was just funny, because the memorandum that came out on it was that this will not be a rite of passage, was how it was read. And
so no hazing is what they're saying.
It's what they meant, but you take a lot of young sergeants in the Army, and they read this to say they shall not pass, and so that they were beating the hell out of a lot of guys. I remember when I went through the level 1, it was, I was blood up. I mean, they were just beating the crap out of everybody got through there. And I do remember it's funny, because one of the guys in the class, he was like, if I'm ever in a fight, I want to be with Harvey, because he doesn't go down easy, which I was kind of laughing about, because if people had seen some of the videos of me getting knocked out, they'd be like, really? But here I am, like, bloody face, getting punched. Like, these guys were like, every iteration was just like slam, 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 which is bad for you, really bad.
Yeah.
It's a horrible way to train. So you got to make it where it's controlled evolutions of getting that punch to the face, where there's a point where there's a stop. There's got to be some safety aspect, because you don't want to hurt people. I've seen videos of people who have this training where you just punch people in the face, boom, boom. And it's like, there's no training there. That's just hurting your student. So you have to have realistic training, but also with controls in it, so that you don't hurt your students, because hurting your student is like again, it's like one of the worst things you can do. Hurting them is about as bad as teaching them a technique to get them killed, maybe even more so, because they trust you. So it's just one of those things where you have to really look at the ethics behind it and make sure that you do it in a way that's beneficial. They do need to get a little bit of it, and sparring is actually good. To some degree, I think that sparring helps people overcome some of their fear of getting tagged, learning their timing, understanding that when push comes to shove, people don't move the way they expect them to.
Right.
Because, like, I love one-step sparring, and the level of it helps you learn a technique, but that's all it does. It teaches you how to do a technique. And when you get to actual applying techniques, you need somebody who's going to retract the hand. You need somebody who's going to resist a little bit, because you have to up that game. It's like you go to grab somebody and their hand comes back. They pull it tight to their chest. Try to get that arm off of their chest. It ain't going to come back. Yeah. Imagine if you got another one that's punching you. Well, that's going to be a problem. So you have to have those pressure testing of your technique a little bit to be able to really work it. I know that there's a lot of guys who train that way, and I think it's really helpful to put some pressure tests to what you're trying to accomplish. And that's just one of the things I think is something that we can't get away from them. If you don't have an element of actual live pressure testing to what we're doing, you're not going to make it work when you need to make it work, because
Right.
people don't
So,
work the way you think they will.
are you, do you know the name, or have you ever met Rory Miller?
I
You
have
ever
met
heard?
with, yeah, yes. He was actually
Oh,
down at one of the camps you had down there with Super
oh,
Dan and Mark.
okay. Yeah, I think, yeah. I couldn't remember if you had attended that or not. So Rory has, and I'm probably butchering this, uh, but he has this process of, it's like, I can't remember what he calls it, but it's this it's this way of playing where it's a give and take on your partner. And so like if
And
you,
Rory actually showing that drill while we were there.
yeah, so it's like, so if you come in with a punch, then I slowly do whatever I'm going to do. So say if my response is to poke you in the eye, I'm not just going to go up and just go, okay, well, my thumb is in your eye. I'm actually going to, put my thumb on the eye and just give it a little pressure so you have that tactile feeling. So it's taking reality to a safe spot, because we do have in those built-in safeguards of not wanting to hurt our partner, to teaching us bad habits.
That
And
is
so,
actually one of the biggest problems that we have, is learning the bad habits.
yeah,
Uh, and if you don't mind, I'll just go with that. It's because you've heard about some of the studies where people were learning firearms training, and they got used to picking up the brass when they were done.
yeah, okay,
And so found that people would actually, after using their weapon system, they would actually stop and start picking up the brass, which is a horrible idea. It's like you don't stop until everything's over. So learning to, drop your magazine, or dropping the brass drop and stuff without actually going back for it, is a better realistic way of training than it is to actually stop in the middle of what you're doing to clean up. And it's similar to the way we train in some of our techniques. As we do the technique and the other person's so compliant that they learn to just go with the motion without ever offering some resistance. So then we just back away, like technique's complete. Well, in the reality of it, if we do the technique, we expect the person to immediately go in the direction that they just went. So we could actually fall into that thing of like, well, next thing you know, they're down there doing a double leg takedown on us. We're getting mounted and pummeled in the face. We have to follow through with the technique with practicing to see where the end state's going to be, and just kind of keep going with it. And then once that's finished, we've got the dominant position, we have achieved our end state, then we'll stop and move away and go back to practicing again. So this was something I was thinking about with that, because it's one of the things that we have as a habit in our training that could be detrimental in an actual real life situation.
and you mentioned the firearm stuff. When I was in Indiana, and I don't know if when you went to Indiana, the times you went, if you went through either Jim or Jim's firing handgun class, or even Fred Masterson. But when I was back there just a couple weeks ago, Fred Masterson was teaching an advanced class, and just shooting at targets and going through the drills. It was, and he never mentioned any, talked about bad habits, but he's like, yeah, if you need to, drop a magazine and, reload, within the drill, then just do so, pick up everything later. So it's not, he's just like, just keep it in, keep everything in motion. And so even when we were shooting around a car, that same thing, we'd shoot around the car, drop the magazine, put in a new one, get back up, continue shooting. It'd say, okay, drill is over, now clean up. So
You have to actually end the training and then do the cleanup, because if you do the cleanup in the training, you will have that habit in your mind.
yeah,
You will
yeah,
be like, oh crap, I just dropped my magazine in the dirt. Maybe I should stop keeping my eye on the target. That's a
yeah,
really bad place to be. It's just
yeah,
like, you don't want to be in the middle of doing a technique and like, oh, I messed up, I have to go back and try again. You don't want to do that. It's not the if you go to hit somebody, you don't get the reaction you want, well, hit them again. And if that
Yeah.
doesn't work, hit them again and grab a brick if you have to. Do what you got to do. Self-defense is ugly. Do what you've got to do to make it work. I know that Jack, he was really solid about teaching us that was the end state of what we do. It's like you hit them till they don't wiggle anymore, and that's the end state. That's where your goal is for self-defense, is when there is nothing that can hurt you anymore, you're safe. And he had all those little Jackisms like be on them like a bulldog on crack and stuff like that. You have to have that level of aggression to be able to fight, and you have to be able to be willing to do what it takes to survive. But you don't want to just go out there and fight everybody that way. So it's like you learn to be peaceful.
Yeah.
Basically, we should live a life very peaceful, no violence, unless violence really, really comes to us. And then it's there. Don't go seek it out. Don't go looking for it. Don't go trying to cause any trouble. But when it comes, be prepared and know that there's consequences for everything we do, because there are consequences. But it's a whole lot better to go through the consequences of going through the legal system than it is to be in the morgue. So you have to work with what you got to work with.
So besides him, I didn't see this initially. When you said, "Hey TJ," he said howdy, but he also just commented, see, however you practice is how you're going to use it when you need it. So practice as if you always, as if it's always real.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the exceptions of like when you're learning the techniques, when you're going, and this one I'm going to get onto because this is like always something people talk about is like teaching kids. You don't have a school if you don't teach some kids. So you got to teach kids.
Right.
And what you teach to a kid may not be what you're going to teach to an adult. Because, like when I'm teaching kids, I'm not teaching kids how to go out on the school ground and hurt each other to that kind of level, because that's just not very nice,
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to pull off a lot of stuff against an adult other than maybe an escape. So you're having to get realistic when you're teaching kids about fight avoidance and learning how to get the other kid off of them, get to a safe space, things like that. So when you're teaching them, you like teach them some of the more complicated principles, but you teach them in ways that they can't hurt each other. So
Right.
that's again back to where we get to some of those things we teach, like doing the basic grabs and escapes and stuff that people see a lot. It's not so much to teach the fullness of the art, but to teach that underbelt level. So like kids, they have that, they're going through their white to black level, but it's not really the same as what you get when you're like 16 and up. So there's a lot of the stuff that the older kids are going to start learning. So the kid who's coming up that way as a kid is going to have to relearn and apply the newer principles as they get older before they're actually an adult black belt. So they need to have that strong foundation that you can still build the other principles on, but still keep them encouraged so they don't, they don't want to walk away, but at the same time you don't want them going out there beating each other up on the playground, because that's not what we're supposed to be teaching them, So.
Right. So you spent a lot of time with Jack. What's one of your favorite memories of Jack?
There's so many things about him. It's like I miss that man every day. It's hard to pick one moment, but every encounter with him was precious. And a lot of times he was funny, and sometimes he was like a dad. He's just so awesome. There's some funny things, like I remember going down to Orlando where he knocked the crap out of me at least a couple of times right before we did a technique, just so he could get me riled up. But that was fun. But I think the favorite one I ever have is we were sitting at, like, I think we were at a, what do you call it, Golden Corral out in Mississippi somewhere or another.
Okay.
We were playing around to sort of the energy thing. We were just kind of messing around with it. And Jack was trying to figure out if you could block with this stuff or not. And I really wasn't sure if this was all legit back in the day either. I remember he was telling me to punch him, so I did, and he did something, and for some reason or other, I didn't make a connection with him, and I was like, this is kind of weird. So, I'm trying to punch him. And then this is legit. I am trying to punch him. And I'm getting frustrated because it was not working. And Jack apparently somewhere in there decided to test to see if I was just screwing with him. And whatever he was doing, he didn't do it. And I punched Jack so damn hard. And, I mean, I've got him right, like, on the upper chest, and he just like turns and he comes back and he just looks at me, and I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna hurt me. And it was so funny, but it was hilarious. I mean, I felt so bad because it's like, punching your dad. He's like, I don't hurt him, but at the same time, it's like he took the punch full on, and it didn't even bother him. And he told me later that thing hurt for weeks afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was actually kind of proud. He told me later he was proud of me because he's like, I told you to punch me. I didn't mean punch me with energy, but it's like, as I said, you don't really separate those two. I punched him all the way through. But we were being legit and trying to practice it. And that's the thing a lot of people don't see. It wasn't like we were just faking this stuff. It was like we were really trying.
Right.
And I know if people watch the videos of me and Jack doing some of that stuff, they'd always think, well, Harvey's just taking a dive, which irritates me to no end, because if people really know me, I don't take a dive.
Right.
It's not in my nature. And if I'm trying to hit somebody, I'm trying to hit them. But you have to check it. But Jack, he was always there. He's a lot of good memories. I have some of the best memories just sitting out on the back porch with him and drinking tea and just talking for hours. And the thing is he was more than it's more than a teacher. He talked about everything. We talked about life and family and friends, and just laughed and joked. And the clerk there come out there and tell everybody it's time to leave. Anytime I drive through town, it's like just go over to his house and always welcome. It was his family. It's like that's why I don't like call him like Grandmaster Hogan or something like that. It's like he was always Jack, and he was always like a dad to me. And I love that man more than people could possibly imagine. And he had that effect with most of the guys who trained with him. I mean, people who truly were in that part of HKI, who truly knew him, loved the man, and he loved each and every one of us the same way. And we were like all his kids and his family. And,
well, he was. I didn't know him for as long as you have, but Jack. I always thought Jack was truly genuine. Like,
absolutely.
It didn't matter who you were. Jack was Jack, and he treated everyone the same way until you did him wrong. But it's because I went out to I pulled my wife out to Idaho to go to a camp that McCuskey was putting on, or maybe I don't know if McCuskey was still alive back then, but Dave Daniels was there. And the one thing that Lisa always used to say about basically the HKI portion of my associations were like, she liked everybody on that side of the family a lot more than the people on the DKI side of the family. She's like, the people are they're warm, they're genuine, they're accepting, they're, everybody is family. And I thought that was always really cool that she thought that way. And I felt that way. I like Jack. I mean, even when you had him up a few years back, God, I can't remember how long ago that was. I couldn't go to the seminar, but I was like, hell, I'll drive 6 hours to go have lunch with Jack and you. And, that was fun seeing him. So
yeah, he was a very special man. And HKI, by his design, has always been like that as a family. He had that as his design, was that it was by invite only, didn't just like let everybody in. It was, not that it excludes people, but it's like, if you didn't fit in, you didn't stick around. And so everybody became kind of a family. And we weren't like, he wasn't out there advertising to try to increase membership or stuff, but the people who found a place they fit stayed, and the people who didn't like it, they went to other places. And he was, he was if you were part of that group that he wanted to be around, then it's part of his family. He treated me like that every day.
Yeah.
He'd call on the phone and say how you're doing. He'd call him on the phone. He'd talk for hours. So it was it's very special. I mean, and other groups have that kind of way with each other too, but HKI is still that same way. Davey is the head of HKI, has kept that same mentality and same way of treating people. We're just a continuation of the next generation of the same family.
Right on.
Some is now some of us who used to be the kids are now the older people, so it's kind of strange,
Well, I'd like to make it back out to we were talking about this before we went live. I'd like to make it back out to Jacksonville, just because I'm sure I met Davey a long time ago, probably the same time that I met you back in 2000, but I just don't remember. But I did, he was gracious enough to be interviewed for episode 100, my knockout episode. And it was great talking with him, but also seeing, other people that I've become friends with over the years through martial arts, like Young and TJ. I got to meet TJ in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
But going out there and playing and learning and seeing friends and, building up that other part of the family. So, let's see. Young says we have room on our couch for a visit. Oh, sweet. Now I don't have to pay for a hotel. I'll sleep on a couch. I'm good with that.
I've been very happy with the direction things have gone. And I think Jack would be very pleased with where things have gone as well. Is that I've done a lot of stuff with Mark, and gone to a lot of stuff with him. And Jim's been coming down to the HKI camp. Davey's been going up to support Jim at his camp, and it's like just the guys are starting to get back together. There's a lot more intermixing of the families. We all have a common ancestry, and we're all kind of working together again, and that's really nice. It's nice to see people starting to work together and seeing where everybody's gone a different path, and some of us learn different ways to do it, but we're all still doing the same art. So it's really good. I like to see those guys, and got some really great people. Yeah, it's
well so let's see. A couple weeks ago in Indiana, there were a bunch of HKI guys that showed up. Couldn't name them all by name, but
Clay went there.
Clay was there.
TJ.
I'm sorry.
TJ was there.
TJ was there. So when I taught the Vulcan neck pinch on Sunday, TJ was actually, he chose my section because Jim had put a big tarp down the middle, so he had two instructors teaching at the same time. So I was like, and it was funny because even TJ said he's like I'm point dead on a lot of things, but when it came to points on his neck, it actually he gave a good response. I actually have a great one of me because we were, I know I'm a little bit off topic of what I was talking about, but the topic of sound and energy came up, and so I told my rendition of Jack's sound story of the fuck you finger lock, and how I kind of see that it's the same way. And so I was like, well, here, and I did what I call the menagerie on TJ, and I just did a ki and he just dropped to the floor, not completely out, but it was enough to get a good a good incapacitation on him. So no, TJ, I like TJ. I know that he's followed me here and there on my show, and but it was good to actually put an actual face to the name and get to meet him. So that was kind of cool. Clay came out to Indiana. Robin Cook.
Oh yeah, Robin. Haven't seen him much in a while.
I had heard his name. In fact, I have the first time Jack came out here, on his flyer, he had Rob, make checks and cashier's checks to Robin Cook. I had no idea who Robin Cook was. I was like, is there a Robin Cook out here? Like, and I knew that at the time it was Scott Rohr was, and this is when Jack was still part of DKI, because I had tried to host Jack after going out in 2000. I was like, Jack, can I host you? And Dillman put a stop to that, unfortunately, but because I was just a junior DKI guy at the time. But Scott Rohr, who was the main guy out here, when he finally hosted Jack, this flyer said Robin Cook. So I was like, okay, I send in my money. I have the name, I wrote the check to Robin Cook, sent it off. And Scott always I don't want to talk negatively of Scott, but it didn't surprise me that he had somebody else's name on the flyer to accept money. So I didn't think anything of it, even though I didn't recognize the name. So I show up to the seminar and Scott's like, yeah, you're not getting in because, who's this Robin Cook guy? You wrote me a check to a different guy, so you're not getting in and I was like, and I didn't have any extra cash or my checkbook on me or anything like that. I said, I'll just write you another check afterwards. I'll just write it out to you. And so he got all up into arms, and Jack actually ended up being brought into it. And so then Jack pulls me aside. He says, you're my guest today. He goes, I don't know what's going on. But it's funny that when I actually meet Robin Cook, it brings up that story. And I'm like, holy cow, this is who Robin Cook is. So Robin's actually a pretty cool guy.
You probably have Rush there too, right?
Huh?
Rush come out too?
Yeah, Rush was there. I met Rush, and he says that I've met him before. I probably have. I just don't remember. Actually getting to Young wasn't able to make it, but I actually, the more I talk with him, the more I remember interacting with him in 2000 out in Jacksonville. I don't know. It's just really weird. So, but it was good to see those guys in Indiana, and I hope that they can make it out in September, or some of them can make it out in September, because I'm going back. I know in our little chat that Jim has brought up, David Hogan has been added to that. So I don't know if he's going to make it out to the September camp. But if I can make it out, I think I could do both. I'm going to make it a point to do both, because with the days for the Hogan camp, all I need is a Friday off, and that'll be easier than getting a couple of days off. So if I can make one, get one approved, I can get the other approved. So
yeah, I'm hoping I can make the September one myself, and definitely be out to the HKI camp in October. It's kind of like a family reunion, so try to do that one every year, and hopefully do some more stuff through a year. Maybe me and you can actually get around to doing some of the.
I know. How long have we been talking about that? It's
a while now, so we need to get around
a while now.
Yeah, maybe we'll do like we were talking with Mark. We'll get us a car. We'll drive up the coast and do seminars all the way from Cali to Washington. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. TJ says it was great to meet you as well. I can't wait to work with you again. Maybe show you some of my tricks. Ooh. And then same, I kind of remember you also, Mish. Yes. And the California trip. So that, I think, so Mark and I have talked about that. Bram and I have also talked about doing that too. Of just doing like, flying into San Diego, and then like I would drive down, he would fly in, and then we would drive north and just have a seminar every couple days or maybe every day. And we just drive a couple 100 miles, have a camp, another couple 100 miles, do another seminar, and just kind of make our way up the coast and just take a week or two and just, have a blast. Just kind of see the sights and teach and, meet some new people. And I think that would be fantastic. I don't care who I do it with. I'd love to do it with you and Mark. Oh, that the trio of us, that would be fantastic.
It would be a serious good time. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I've been wanting to do for a while is to have a fairly large seminar, get a lot of people towards Seattle and just do a large seminar there. Just trying to, get that where we get enough attendance to be able to help bring some more instructors in, because it'd be great to have a lot of people come up,
Yeah.
A lot of great guys in HKI down in the Florida area who would be awesome instructors, and people would appreciate a lot of the stuff they do, and like get Davey. And if we get a lot of people, it'd be great to have a lot of people come out and do that. It'd be awesome. Of course, right now, with the way that COVID has been, it's kind of killed my classes for the last year, and they won't let me teach out of the school here until the restrictions have been lifted. So it's kind of been very painful as far as that goes. So I'm not sure we deal well. You've got your little home dojo, don't you?
I have something. Well, I have my little home dojo. I haven't done any live classes. Well, in-person classes, I should say. Even though Washington has opened up, we're opened up to 50% because I think the entire state is still in phase 3. So that allows us 50% capacity. Actually, at one point when we were down to, let's see, because martial arts was lumped in with gyms for a long time when it came to the restrictions. And gyms, it was, you can only have one person per 300 square feet. And my mat space is 252 square feet of mat space. And I was like, shoot, I can't even train by myself.
Yeah, it's been a hard year on the stuff. But,
yeah.
I'm hoping we get past this soon, and then we can do some stuff together. That'd be awesome. You're still planning on bringing down Bram for the his birthday bash coming up here. Bram's
yeah, I bring him out every year. Even brought him out last year. We didn't, we had been, I think when you came down for not last year, the year before, we were up at the high school. And then before we were at the grade school, because they let us have the gym. But of course, with COVID, everything was shut down. And so I was like, well, I got a big backyard. I just built a fence. So we just did it in the backyard. And so that's what we're going to do again this year. It's going to be awesome. So
I'll get with you later this week. I'm going to actually be there this year. So I'm going to come down.
Okay. I
do enjoy learning some modular stuff and all that fun things there.
Well, this year we're going to play with bolos. So give us a little bit more reality to what we've been doing with sticks for years. So
and we get a set of his bolos, but they seem to be out of stock right now.
Well, we took them off the website because getting them, it's been a process because they're made by hand in the Philippines. There's a guy who's, I don't know if he's been designated the official Prisus bolo maker, but he's a pretty cool guy. And so, Bram will order some. And then, of course, he had put in an order and then COVID hit. So nothing could ship out from the Philippines at all. So they just had these bolos just sitting there waiting. And then all of us. And so the minute that it opened up for shipping, he was able to get them over here. And so then Bram put in another order. But the cost of shipping was so much, we had to raise the price. So we haven't put in another order, and we took them offline just because we couldn't, we didn't want, because it was taking so long. We didn't want to people be like, hey, I spent $300. Where's my stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so there's this thing, COVID, but to get to what I was going to say, we actually have one bolo set left over. One has not been spoken for.
Well, if
So
you let me, get that set, that would be really awesome. So, I'll get with you after this thing here. I'll order that from you.
yeah, I'll talk to I'll confirm with Bram. He says I'm the master of the list. So
I would have got those last week, but I was like, man, there's none available. This is so bad.
yeah. So yeah, I don't
blade too, right?
Huh?
One's a drone and one's alive.
Yep.
Well, perfect. That's what I need right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they are really nice. They're really nice blades. So but yeah, after this is over, we can work out the details. But yeah, so we're gonna do a 3-day camp and out in the open. So I bought these little shade covers because we had a couple tents to keep the heat off of us last year, but I actually bought these shades that I'm gonna connect between the house and the fence, so we don't we're not playing around stilts or anything like that. It's gonna be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it.
It's good to have some shade too, because I burn pretty easy. So
yeah. Yes.
Looking forward to it.
So, okay. So I'm like, if you want to organize something and maybe this is something that we can plan for, maybe next year or whatever, I would love to do some type of big, like Emerald City martial arts camp.
Actually, the name that I wanted to have is like an Emerald City Super Seminar. It's in Seattle, and like have a large group of people do like 3 days of everybody. That's like my in-state goal. And
yeah,
I'd like to have Davey and Mark and Jim and then Graham and anybody who wants to come out, who wants to do that, like Bruce. Just get like our guys who like do Ornice, guys who do small circle, guys who do the Kyusho, just anybody who wants to be there. Like they're a good teacher, good student. Like you let people get out there and teach and show what they can do. So it's like it'd be a great, just be a great time for everybody.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I would. I think having like a almost like a big 3 on steroids.
Yeah.
I think that would be fantastic. And I think that could easily be an annual thing. And I think having the 3, having multiple arts would also be attractive to people because, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Kyusho in the Pacific Northwest.
Not a lot of.
No, it's not alive at all. Like there's not a lot of, and I even like with Mark, I had him out. I used to have him out twice a year, and then it went down to one time a year. But as much promotion that I gave it, as much people just don't come, and I don't know why. And I'm not, and so it's like, okay, well, is it because of me? Is it because maybe people don't like Mark? Is it maybe I put it on a weekend when other people were doing something else? Or is it that Kyusho has gotten a bad rap out here for whatever reason, and so people just aren't interested anymore? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that some of it might be that Kyusho's kind of gotten a lot of negative publicity. I think that probably does some of it. But I think that when we introduce, like when people see that, like the Filipino martial arts that is right with us. I mean, it's like a lot of the other guys, they know that Filipino martial arts are pretty legit, you know. So
Right.
if you look at guys like Bruce Chu, who's pretty good with all of the Filipino martial arts. I mean, he's amazing. I don't know if you ever got a chance to work with Bruce any, but he's just amazing at what he does, and he incorporates points too. But it's like, you know, sticks. You know, that's pretty legit. And when they see that, that's where we get a lot of our motions for our openings and how we fight. It's like we've blended these arts. We're not just purely Kyusho practitioners. We you know, intermix a lot of the stuff from the Filipino martial arts in it. We incorporate a lot of stuff from small circle jiu-jitsu into it. So it's very much a hybrid art at this point. If you really look at what we do, we're not a purist, just one type of thing. So it's like when we see that these other guys are doing it, it's really good for us. It's kind of like when you have a guy like Dan Anderson, who has a lot of credibility in the traditional martial arts point fighting circuit. I mean, he's famous. I mean, he's just right there. So when you see Dan, he does that, but he also does the Filipino martial arts. He's highly respected there. When you have him around with you, it adds to people like going like, well, if Super Dan Anderson is, you know, okay with these guys, then that adds a little bit of people like, well, maybe I'll have to look at it. And when people get in there, they start seeing it. You know, it's we have a lot of damage control from some of the very negative things that have come out over the last several decades, well, at least last couple of decades. The National Geographic special, probably one of the worst things.
Oh my gosh. I remember George being so excited that that was coming out. And then when it finally came out, it was just like, oh.
You know, if you're going to do something like that, there's going to be a level of there's going to be some people who are going to use that for the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
then there's the aspect of, you know, like you know, I think the human stun gun and some of that. I don't know if you ever seen him. and I mean, and some of the stuff, it looks so bad, and it just gives a bad reputation. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, you know, we have to up the ante and show that, hey, look, we're legit. We have something valuable to show people, and people when they see it, and as the you know, the saying goes, is pain makes believers. And once a person feels it, I think that was actually Wally J who had that great quote. But you know, when you feel it, you believe it, and that's the thing. I've
Mhm.
encountered guys who were complete, oh, this is BS, and when you actually touch them, they're like, oh man, how'd you do that? That's kind of really cool, you know. So it's like it's just a matter of getting people in there to give it a try, and you know, there's different types of martial arts, but again, like right now, BJJ is a big thing here, so it's you know, those guys, they're not. I mean, they train hard, but they don't normally train in a lot of other stuff, except maybe the Filipino martial arts. So having that around does something that they can kind of maybe an entrance way for them to look at it too. So I
Yeah.
think that's the thing is having an eclectic group of talented martial artists to come out and give some different perspectives. And I think we have amazing talent across all the different groups from, you know, my group of HKI with all the people we have there. It's like it's great, amazing people. Um, and we have, you know, we're closely affiliated with Mark's group, and he has amazing stuff. His pinpoint method is really excellent way of describing the pressure points, and Jim's group is pretty large a group as people as well, and anybody's ever met him knows that he's about as legit as you can get. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
we've got some great people that we all know, and I think if people get out there and see this, they'll see that it's not just the silliness in the videos, and see that there's actually something to be said for it that's legit and works really well. So that's kind of where I'm at. We just got to get people in there, and having some of the other guys invited as well is always is good. You know, like I know they used to have the thing, what Jerry Beasley always has like his karate college thing uh,
Mhm.
that he always had all the different types of groups, and something like that would be really good. Is you have things that aren't even the stuff that we personally like. Is like invite any good instructor who wants to get some mat time and show what they can do, and we make a really good seminar.
I think it would be fun.
Yeah.
I'm down.
I
I'm
mean,
down.
I'd be there, you'd be there, so at least we got 2 people already. And that right there, that's a win. Yeah, 2
Yeah,
people. You build it, yes,
build it from there.
I've seen seminars with pretty low turnout, but hopefully we can make enough that we can pay for the travel and expense and maybe some food and a place to stay for some of the guys who were like your main headliners.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
that's the
and
biggest thing.
as a
Making enough food.
as somebody, as a promoter, that's one of the big stresses that I've always had. It's like, oh my gosh, am I going to make enough to pay for airfare? Or at least I like with Mark, I always just send him the money for airfare. And then I was like, God, I hope I can just get into the black, and even, pay. And even with Mark, like Mark and I, we had talked for years, and then all of a sudden he's just like, when am I coming out? And I'm like, I can't afford you, dude. Like I really can't. And he's like, pay for the airfare. We'll figure it out from there. And that's really where our friendship, I mean, that's kind of from there, we've been friends ever since. We were friendly before, but it was just that. And so, we've had some successful seminars, and we've had some seminars where it's just like, well, I'm, not going to eat for the next week because it all went to the airfare, but, but even, trying to cut costs, like that first time that Mark came out, I got him a hotel and paid for his airfare, and we made a little bit of money. Not a lot, but the next time he came out, it was one of those where it was like, he's like, I need this. I'll just take all the money because it's like, he's like, you're not going to be out anything. I don't want you to put out any money. So I was like, okay, well, to earn you money and to get what your goal is, then why don't you just sleep on the couch? Or, we have like a hide a bed. You can just sleep here at the house. And he's like, I'm good for that. And so every single, and that was every single time. It's like, okay, they're saving money. He's just going to stay at the house. And so when Mark came out, it's like, okay, cool. We have a house guest, and Mark, we're just hanging out on the couch, doing whatever in between things, or going out seeing the sights. And the same thing with Bram. I got him a hotel the first year, and I was like, the second year, I was like, I want to try and put as much money in your pocket. Would you mind just staying at the house? Mark does. And he's like, sure, I'm good for that. So Bram stays at the house now. So I don't know. It's just, but it is that stress. Even, talking with Jim, the first time I went out to Indiana years ago, it was one of those where, he was just stressed about making airfare, like this year, he was like, I want to pay you for your airfare. And then, I didn't get paid back for the airfare. I did get some money, but he's just like, I feel really bad not at least paying for that. And I was like, Jim, you let me stay in the cabin. Like,
That's a nice cabin.
you let me stay you allowed me to be a featured instructor. You let me stay at the cabin. Like, you're gracing me with your presence, Jim. That's all I need. I don't know.
It's actually one of the things that I think about. It's like I hear, a lot of times, again, like the whole Mac Jojo life thing, and there's like all the people always talking about how all these people taking money from their students and stuff. And I'm sitting there going like, I don't know exactly who these other people who are taking all this money from their students are, but it's like, this has never been a thing about money. It's like the whole time I knew Jack, it was never about the money. And with any of my students, it's never about the money. I was like, I'll teach for free more often than not. I mean, it's crazy. I have a full-time job. I don't really do martial arts for money. I spend way more money on travel and stuff for martial arts than I actually have ever made, and probably will be that way till the day I die. It's just, it's never about the money. It's something that is part of my life and that I love. And I've noticed with most everybody, it's the same way. It's not about the money. It's about the family. It's about the practice and just this there's a part of our life that would be empty without it. So, it's like when I went out to Italy with Mark, it's like it's no money to be made. Didn't lose a lot of money either. It's like got a cheap flight, stayed in a nice little place. John Luca, his family, very, very accommodating and nice to. We got some food there, and that was great. And it was a wonderful time, and people around the world the same way. It's like this thing. Mark came out to Japan. I think he used some of his miles to get a flight out to Japan one time. So, we've had.
He went out there for his 50th.
Yeah, he came out and celebrated his birthday with me, and went to Kamakura and Yokohama, a few places, and checked out all the sites. And I think we did a little one of his Kyusho cast or whatever it's called, or maybe that's yours, Kyusho cast, whatever it is that he has. This Kyusho Live. I can't remember what it's called, but
no, it's Kyusho cast. Yeah.
Okay. I know you have something that sounds similar, so I can't remember. Mine's
Kyusho Corner.
Oh, Kyusho Corner.
Yeah.
But it's like it's like just being around people who are your friends and family. It's like that's the joy of it. So whether you're spending the time hitting each other and getting hit, or teaching or learning, or sometimes just sitting around having a drink and talking, it's like it's a wonderful time. So it's like go down and see the Hogan family. It's always good to see them, and go up and see Jim. It's great to see him. So we'd like to get back to Indiana again. So we just we have a very large family of a lot of people. So we're maybe even come down and train with you sometime. Might have to ride down there just to swing by and visit. Share anything I have with you, and pick up some of the modular stuff from you. So it'd be great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we could probably violate some of the COVID restrictions with just two of us in that small dojo. So
I'll do a temp check at the door. We'll be somewhat in compliance.
Yeah. You got to be safe, because I hear that you can actually have this thing now and not even know it, and you won't have any symptoms. It won't hurt you, but you can have it. You can't even test for it. It's getting really dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm joking right now.
Well, honestly, I've being now where I work now, I'm not in a lot of patient contact, but I was at the beginning of this thing, and I was getting tested quite a bit, knowing anybody. So I never got it, never had any symptoms. One thing that was amazing to me, which is almost and this is probably why I want to really go back out there, is because when I went out to Indiana, I stepped out of the Evansville airport, took off my mask, and I did not put one back on until I re-entered the airport again 4 days later. And so it was almost like we went out to dinner, we went into, a grocery store, we went, and nobody harassed us. There were still people who wore masks, but it was almost like 90% back to normal. And so that was, it was a good
elderly or poor health condition. They really need to be extra careful. It's
yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, people do need to be careful, but I've been out there, 2 weeks. I was out there 2 weeks ago. I flew. Now, here's the thing that I find kind of funny is that in the airport, you have to be 6 feet away from everybody. But I was sitting in all my flights, elbow to elbow to people.
Oh yeah.
So, but
those should be pretty empty.
I still don't have any symptoms. So I don't know. I could have caught it on the trip. I just don't know.
Yeah,
but
hopefully it's all good. But I think this thing will eventually go away. I'm very hopeful. It's been a major inconvenience over the last year, so I'd like to see this go back to being at least somewhat the way it was before. As I said, I'd like to get back out there on the mats, rolling around with people and stuff too. But I have to be somewhat careful just because of my job, so I don't want to miss work. So I've been not having that up close personal contact, just because it's good for keeping myself about employment. But it'd be nice to get everything back to where it is. And went out to Jacksonville, taught there, didn't have any issues. I mean, I mean, we try to be careful as much as we can. It's like don't spit on anybody, don't breathe on them too much, and it might be okay. So who knows?
Yeah. All right. So we've been talking for quite a bit. It's
Almost
the
2 hours.
counter went back to, so I think it's been 109 minutes or 110 minutes. So we're almost at 2 hours now, which is awesome because I love talking with you, and time is relative on these things anyway. So,
Have we got anybody on here with us, or?
well, we've had a couple people here and there. Young and TJ were the only ones that said that chimed in at all.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I always just because the timing, I think at least on our coast, a lot of people are still teaching. Like even when I did Dan Anderson's thing, I had to do it at noon because he had classes until then. So I usually get quite a bit of views after it's been already recorded or previously recorded views, I guess you could say. So
Oh, we had a good chat with you. It was pretty good.
yeah. All right. So let's see. When you're not when COVID is not going on, you actively teach, correct?
Yeah.
This is kind of promoting you here. So do you have a school location, or do you teach out of another person's place, or what do you do?
Out of the elementary school here in Bremerton.
Okay, cool. All right. And then
waiting till that's all open again before there, so not a whole lot of promoting of me at the moment. So
right on. Well, and you don't teach any virtual stuff, anything like that?
I'm available for private lessons. If anybody wants that, they can just email me and hit me up on the Facebook or Messenger or something, and I am available for private lessons as well. But I
Okay.
don't do anything virtually. I'm all hands-on kind of guy.
Okay. All righty. Well, let's see. If people have hung out this long, I'm going to throw this up. If you haven't subscribed, we've had some comments. Throwing comments even when you're watching this previously recorded. But you can find me on, or at least DojoChat on Facebook. There's a Facebook page. I've got my personal Instagram and my main YouTube at Sensei Mish. And of course, there's a website, dojochatpodcast.com. Go there if you want to be on. You can send a message, or even if you want to help promote this podcast, which I've actually gotten some people. I've gotten some, not through the website, but through Instagram. I've gotten messages. I won't say it on air because I'm not going to go with them, but I found what they're trying to sell. Not really down my not down my alley, but interesting product line. So, all right. So, thank you, Harvey. I appreciate your time. I always love hanging out with you, even virtually. Thank you all for watching, and we're going to bring this to an end. So peace out, train hard, be safe.